Here's your wrestling news for December 4th, 2020. And your headlines for today include breaking news on Kenny Omega's Impact Wrestling appearance next week as AEW World Champion. How long is AEW's partnership with Impact Wrestling? Triple H says WWE is, quote, open for business to work with other companies. Is this a sign of panic within WWE? Charlotte Flair 2020 return date is finally revealed. Is Sting going to make an in-ring return for AEW at the age of 61? Next week's segment, contract details, and more. Sami Callihan teases Switchblade conspiracy reunion with Jon Moxley. Reckoning trolls Dana Brooke for getting lip filler. WWE star takes a dig at Tony Khan's tweet about Dynamite beating NXT. Adam Pearce hints at new role for Billie Kay, and more. We are kicking off today with Impact Wrestling, as next week's show is one of the most anticipated shows in the company's history thanks to what happened on this week's AEW Dynamite. After Kenny Omega captured the AEW World title, Don Callis promised fans could find out more about his alignment with the Cleaner by tuning into Impact, and now we know what will happen next Tuesday. According to Mike Johnson on PW Insider Elite Audio, Omega won't be physically present at the show, as he explained. Kenny Omega was not at the last set of Impact Wrestling tapings. They're done, they've filmed all their TV for the year. I was told that the plan is this coming week Don Callis and Kenny Omega will be filming something, I assume in Canada, I don't know for sure, for Impact that'll be inserted into the TV show. Even without Omega physically there, the fact that the company will feature the new AEW World Champion at all is a huge thing, and it'll be interesting to hear what Omega has to say next week. Omega appearing on Impact Wrestling will be a huge deal for Impact, and should see a huge boost in the viewing figures, but AEW will be getting something in return. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that the angle with Callis has been in the works for a while, and it's presumed that Callis came up with the idea and Tony Khan went with it. He added, "It does open up the doors for people, which is great for Impact because some of their guys are going to end up on AEW television probably." It's interesting that during this week's episode of Impact, a throwback match was aired featuring Generation Me, the Young Bucks TNA name, and Meltzer noted that this was probably foreshadowing for what was going to happen on Dynamite, and the company avoided making it too obvious. Whilst the Bucks were featured on this week's Impact and Omega will be on next week's show, it seems fans haven't seen the last of stars from both companies appearing on the opposite shows. With the AEW and Impact rosters aligned, there's no shortage of dream matches that could play out. But who do you want to see face off? And should WWE be worried about this collaboration? Leave your views in the comments below. More from the AEW Impact partnership next, as we're unclear how many stars will cross over, but it's seemingly bound to happen following Kenny Omega's world title win. On the Living the Gimmick podcast's Patreon account, the Young Bucks spoke about the new deal, and Matt Jackson said this is something they've wanted to do for a while. He said, 2 years ago, this was something that Nick and I brought up that we wanted to get this going, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. I don't know if that was more on our side or what, but we just couldn't agree to what the creative would be. When Nick and I were stopping and popping up at indie shows and going to AAA in Mexico, that was one of the suggestions we had. What if we showed up in Impact? This is something we've been whispering in Tony Khan's ears for 2 years. It's a lot of collaboration and partnering with everybody, and working together, this is what we've always done. The Bucks have been teasing a return to Impact to prove that they're no longer Generation Me, but that wasn't all the brothers had to say on the podcast. Addressing long-term plans, Matt admitted that they don't know what the partnership will include, and though there are plans for where they're headed next, he didn't provide spoilers. He said, "What do we know about it? It's so early, I don't think all of us collectively know what it means. I think we're kind of dipping our toes in it right now, and we're going to see what we can get out of it. But there are, immediate plans that I just can't give away right now. But my dream, if I had it my way, I just think about the possible dream matches. People are already hitting me up like, oh my god, can you imagine Young Bucks versus Motor City Machine Guns 10 years later? Discussing teams in Impact, Matt praised the North, saying the team is fantastic, and it's hard to debate that fact. There's plenty of matches that could happen between AEW and Impact, and we're all for this partnership, as this has just been the latest unpredictable event in wrestling that 2020 has brought us. Over to WWE, and whilst Triple H was back for another media call to promote this Sunday's NXT TakeOver War Games pay-per-view, talk quickly turned to what happened on Dynamite this week. When questioned about WWE's stance on working with other promotions, clearly alluding to the alliance between AEW and Impact, the game didn't mention either company by name, but instead said, "You know, in what you've seen in the past, Progress, ICW, Evolve, all those things, yeah, we're open for business in a lot of ways and a lot of things. People's thoughts and misperceptions, their perceived knowledge of what we do and how we think is often greatly misinterpreted and not accurate. Are we open to the right business opportunities? Yeah, at any given time, we're open to things. It just depends on what they are and if they're beneficial to us in the long term. When I say long term, I don't mean 3 months, I mean 10 years, long term. That's how we think. We're not necessarily worried about minute by minutes. Open for business. I think Vince says that a lot, and I've been around him long enough that if it's the right thing and meaningful to business, he's open to anything." It's ironic that WWE is apparently thinking long-term when we reported just days ago that they're not even booking past next week, and the company's start-stop pushes and rapid heel and face turns for stars like Braun Strowman aren't signs of any long-term plans. We'll have to see what's next for AEW and Impact Wrestling. WWE generally does their own thing, but we've seen they're willing to work with other companies if they can buy them first. More from Impact next, as last week's show brought some extra attention, which was reflected in the viewing figures. Thanks to some high-profile matches as well as Swoggle's AJ Styles parody, the show charted in the top 150 cable shows for the night, averaging 166,000 viewers for their 8 p.m. Eastern time slot, according to Showbuzz Daily. That figure doesn't include those fans streaming on Twitch, which exceeded 3,000 viewers at one point on the platform. Overall, the show ranked 121st in the top 150 cable shows for the night, and given that next week we'll see AEW World Champion Kenny Omega on the show, we expect Impact to do much better in just a few days. Charlotte Flair news next, as the Queen has teased a big end to the year. On Instagram, Charlotte posted a gym selfie saying she's going to finish 2020 strong, and it certainly looks like she's ready to return. Flair is expected to return on the December 21st Raw, which will be the night after WWE TLC, and we'll have to wait and see what the Queen of All Eras does when she's back. Back to Sting, and we have an idea of how AEW will use their newest signing. During Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that though Sting isn't expected to be taking bumps, he could get physical in angles, and he'll be a regular on AEW far more than WWE used him. Sting is set to speak on next week's Dynamite for the first time since joining the company, and it turns out he's been with AEW for longer than you'd expect. On the Living the Gimmick podcast, Matt Jackson revealed that Sting's debut was a secret for a long time, saying, "This is something that we've been sitting on for a little while, and it was just one of those things where it's a secret and you're living with it. It's like, can we just do it so people can see it?" Jackson also said that all the AEW stars marked out when they saw Sting appear from the trailer he was hiding in, and we certainly can't blame the wrestlers for having the same reaction fans around the world felt at this shocking debut. More Sting news, as the Hall of Famer made his AEW debut with a nice new shirt, which quickly went up on Pro Wrestling Tees. On the site's Instagram account, it was revealed that the shirt has set a record for the most shirts sold in 24 hours, and this post was made before 24 hours had even passed. The first clue fans had that WWE and Sting separated was when a Mattel action figure was pulled from their upcoming line, and with AEW's action figure partner Jazzwares already working on a lot of possibilities, it's likely we could see a Sting AEW figure. WWE had to pull Sting's merchandise from their shop when his contract ran out, but clearly fans were really eager to grab some more of his merchandise. One person who watched Sting's debut was Eric Bischoff, and he was very pleased with what he saw. Bischoff has appeared for AEW twice before, and given his past work in WCW, knows Sting well, and after the Hall of Famer's debut, tweeted out, "I'm excited about the possibilities with the addition of Sting to the AEW roster and the potential of the story going forward. So far, they've over-delivered on one very important story element and have laid an intriguing foundation for another. I'm in." Though Sting will be a regular performer on AEW TV, he isn't likely to be taking many, if any, bumps, and we'll have to see what he has to say on next week's Dynamite when he speaks to the AEW fans for the first time. AEW clearly has plans to use Sting more than WWE ever did, and if you ask Bischoff, who spearheaded WCW Creative for so long, they're already doing a better job. Now with AEW and Impact working together, there's plenty of big crossover matches that could happen, and some Impact stars aren't waiting long to tease them. After the Bucks teased making a splash on Impact, the Good Brothers also teased facing off against the duo, with Carl Anderson saying, "Here we go." The former Impact World Champion Sami Callihan also got in on the action, as he teased a reunion of the Switchblade conspiracy with his own partner Jon Moxley. And time will tell if this plays out on either AEW Dynamite or Impact Wrestling. Back to WWE, and whilst it seems there's no concrete evidence that Dana Brooke gets her lips filled, Retribution's Reckoning seems to think so. After Brooke called out Reckoning on Twitter for giving her a black eye in the last encounter, the former Mia Yim said that Brooke should save the money she spends on fillers for concealer instead, as it shows that Reckoning isn't messing around in the ring or online. Over to NXT, and Karrion Kross was injured in his championship victory over Keith Lee, but now it looks like he's ready to return. On social media, Kross has posted more workout videos, and when asked during the War Games media quote, Triple H quoted Kross himself when asked about his return, saying it could be, quote, any second. It's even possible that Kross and Scarlett could be back this Sunday, and even if that doesn't happen, it sounds like the former NXT champion will be back very soon. Whilst Kross may soon be back, Mandy Rose was pulled from Survivor Series thanks to a bad bump out of the ring, and now we have an update on her condition. According to a report by Ringside News, there's no timetable even being discussed for Rose to return to the ring, and the company is trying to avoid the Golden Goddess going under the knife. Their report added that the company is treating the Rose situation on a week-by-week schedule, and it's unclear when she'll be back at all. What we do know is that the company has no plans booked for when she can return to the ring, as it looks like the Golden Goddess may be out of action for quite some time. Now, given what's happened on this week's Winter is Coming Dynamite, it's unsurprising that AEW beat NXT in the ratings, and when Tony Khan pointed this out on Twitter, Retribution's T-Bar responded. When Khan noted AEW scored 913,000 viewers compared to NXT's 658,000, T-Bar said he got 1.74 million viewers, the viewing figure for Monday Night Raw. Whilst AEW's flagship show has dominated NXT once again, it can't compete in the ratings with WWE's flagship programming, as T-Bar once again proved that his social media game knows no end. And finally today we're ending with Billie Kay, who may have found a new job thanks to Adam Pearce. When Pearce said he's looking for a new assistant, he shared a picture of himself with Kay, though the Aussie isn't the only one vying for the job. In a reply to Pearce's tweet, Corey Graves made it clear he wants to be picked by the WWE official, and we'll have to see who gets this important job between the SmackDown commentator and the former Women's Tag Team Champion.